All right, here it is. The best insulin to lower high fasting blood sugars. Stay tuned. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever is on your mind, be it bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, diet, training, supplementation, questions about IFBB pros, IFBB pro contests, it is all on the table. This past weekend was the 2024 Texas Pro, as we saw Andrew Jack win his third consecutive Texas Pro title. So he is back to the big dance, bigger than ever, better than ever. At the weigh-ins, tipping at around 300 pounds. So Andrew Jack right now in the conversation is one of the prime candidates who can disrupt that top two of Derek Lunsford and Hadi Choopan. Dave Palumbo and Chris Aceto's full breakdown of the show on Heavy Muscle Radio, a comprehensive breakdown not only of that show, but also an impressive winner in the 212, Francisco Barrios Book. Zoma Benta out of women's physique, another one who was top 3 last year at the Olympia. So really a division by division breakdown. Heavy Muscle Radio, if you haven't already done so, check it out. It is live on the channel. Yesterday's episode of the After Hours podcast, which where we addressed the controversy surrounding Armin Adibi's appearance at the NPC Texas Super Show this past weekend, which is part of the Texas Pro. So again, all that right now live on the channel. At RX Muscle. Let's go right into the questions. The first 2 questions on this show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. First question, Omegalyze. If someone is allergic to fish, how do they obtain a healthy omega-3 balance?
Well, it's a little more difficult, obviously, because plant sources of omega-3 fats don't convert in humans very efficiently into the usable form, which is the EPA and DHA, icosapentaenoic acid and hexanoic acid. So we don't convert those. So if you can drink all the flaxseed oil you want, and flaxseed is very high in the parent compound, alpha-linolenic acid, it just doesn't convert to usable form. So if you're a vegan, you can do flaxseed. It's not bad for you. You're just not going to get the benefits. There is a marine algae, I believe, where you can get the DHA from. The EPA is going to be a lot harder. So, but you can buy pure EPA. It's like I said, a marine algae that has it in it. It's just a very difficult thing to do. Being a true vegan is very hard, and I think that people don't really understand that when they get into being vegans, and that's why a lot of them fail. And when I say fail, I mean they go back to eating animal products because they just don't look good. They don't feel healthy because it's very hard to get, animal sources of protein, plant sources of protein that are high in branched chain aminos. They're just not that, by definition, they just aren't. And that's what turns on mTOR in the body, which is the repair mechanism of muscle. So, if you don't care about muscle mass on your body, then yeah, you can be a vegan. It's not going to be a big deal. You'll get enough protein. You're just not going to you're going to have very little lean muscle tissue. It's very hard to build lean muscle tissue. You can still do it. It's just very hard. Plus, you're dealing with this problem of not being able to get the essential fatty acids you need. Now, you can get the omega-6 essential fatty acids, because evening primrose oil and borage oil has the necessary components in there, the gamma-linolenic acid, but it's very hard to get the EPA DHA from the omega-3 intermediates directly. And once again, it's because humans don't convert. We have an enzyme system that only converts 10% of alpha-linolenic acid into usable EPA DHA. So having said that, it is a challenge for sure, but it can be done if you're meticulous enough, and I think that that's the key, is really making sure you know what you're doing. The problem is a lot of vegans just don't understand nutrition enough. They just start eating these prefabricated vegan meals that they sell in the store. They think, oh, I'm vegan, but that doesn't mean you're healthy. So take that into account.
Second question, again, these first two questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. You mentioned before that enlargement of the heart is a serious concern with the use of anabolics. Could you elaborate on that in terms of why it is dangerous and if there's anything bodybuilders can do to prevent it? It's talking about enlargement of the heart and anabolics.
Yeah. There's a problem when your heart gets bigger for no reason, right? Because why would the heart just start getting bigger? Usually that implies the heart is not working efficiently, right? Like, so if the heart is failing, maybe you had a heart attack and part of the heart muscle was damaged, and now the heart is enlarging to try to compensate for that. Or if you're just not pumping blood efficiently for whatever genetic reason, or just maybe because you don't take care of yourself and you're getting older, sometimes the heart will enlarge because it's a muscle and it says, wait, we're not doing our job, let's get bigger. But when it gets bigger, that's not necessarily a good thing, because it's pathologic, meaning that there's something wrong with the heart. It's not working efficiently. When bodybuilders' hearts get bigger, or any athlete for that matter, okay, runners get bigger hearts. Their hearts don't get thicker; they just get bigger chambers, so they can pump more blood. What's happening is that we're putting a demand on the heart. If I'm in the gym and I'm squatting 600 pounds for 8 reps, I'm telling my heart, I need more blood, and I need it a lot faster. So what the heart does is it gets more muscular and it gets bigger, so that when it pumps every time, it's pushing more blood out and faster to the muscles, because that's what the muscles are demanding. That's called an athletic heart. Now, some doctors would say that's not good. You have an enlarged heart, and they will compare it to the person who's in a hospital bed with an enlarged heart, because their heart is failing, and it's just not an apt comparison. There are two different reasons why one heart is big and the other heart is big. One is the heart is failing. The other one is that the heart is actually working at maximum plus efficiency. So I think it's erroneous of these doctors to start putting guys on beta blockers and all kinds of medications to try to combat an enlarged heart, when the enlarged heart is adaptive to what they're doing. So it's one thing when you have a problem. Okay, look, I have an arrhythmia. Okay, I don't know where it came from. I was born with it probably, and I had an aorta repair. So they the aorta is good now, but they put me on a beta blocker so that my heart is not going to start beating too fast and maybe throw itself out of rhythm, because I have an arrhythmia, right? So for me, that probably is something that I should take, which I do. In another bodybuilder goes into the doctor and they have an enlarged heart on echocardiogram, and their ejection fraction, which is the amount of blood their heart pumps out, is reduced, because when the heart gets thicker, the chamber size gets smaller. Okay, even though the heart's a little bigger, and so it's not pumping as much blood. So they're telling you got a low ejection fraction. This is not good. But the truth is, a lot of times it is good, because the heart is pumping blood faster to the muscles, which is what the muscles need. So the muscles and what you're doing in the gym is dictating what is happening to the heart. And so in that case, you have an athletic heart and you're fine. But these doctors will still erroneously diagnose you with heart failure, or enlarged heart, or pathologic heart. That is just not apt. And I think that there needs to be a distinction between the two. And if there's not, I think we're going to have a lot of misdiagnoses, and people are going to be getting a lot of procedures, and they're going to be getting being put on a lot of prescription medications that they just don't need. And so I do see that as a problem. And I think that there has to be a separate set of standards for the elite athlete versus, and that goes with blood work too. And we've talked about that. I don't want to go into that whole topic now. So blood work and heart diagnoses have to be separated. Athletic heart, athletic blood, versus pathologic heart, pathologic blood, of a regular person. And when we do that, I think we're gonna have better medical treatment for athletes. That's not to say that there aren't athletes that have issues with their heart, but I think a lot of them are being misdiagnosed. I see it all the time, and a lot of times I'm looking at their echo and I'm like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're fine. You feel good. You're performing in the gym. You're a big guy. This is nothing wrong with this, And then other cases, I'm like, no, you better really, better look into this. You have a blockage here, or something's going wrong there. Now, these questions are really good questions. They come from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. It's an app you can download from your Android or iTunes store. It's $29 a month. You get me as a coach in your back pocket. You get all my writings, all my videos in one place, all my protocols, off-season, pre-contest diets, and PED cycles. I answer everyone's questions in an open forum, so you see everyone's questions, everyone's answers. I do a Q&A video just like we're doing now, exclusively for the app members every single week. So you get an extra Q&A video in there. It's a great learning experience. We put a workout up every single week. It's a lot of value for your money, and I appreciate everyone out there who subscribes to the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Thank you so much.
Take questions from our Facebook page or Instagram page. On Facebook, if you're not already following us, just type in RxMuscle in the search bar. On Instagram, official_RxMuscle. Bilal Hamide, what would you recommend as a base dose for lantus, someone who has a 90 as a fasting blood sugar and is using 6 IU of h.g.h a day?
Well, a 90 blood sugar fasting in the morning is good. I mean, that's fine. You want to be 90 or under. So I don't even know if I would even take lantus at that point. But if you're running, some days you run 90, some days you run 95, and you're starting to creep up a little higher, especially while taking GH, which is possible. Because remember, growth hormone works kind of antagonistically to insulin. So a lot of times when you take GH and the higher the dosage, the more you see this, you start running high fasting blood sugars, because what happens is in the morning, your body can't crank out enough insulin to overcome the GH that's there, to lower that blood sugar. Because remember, overnight, right before you wake up, your liver releases a ton of glucose into the bloodstream, getting you ready for waking up. And then your body has to release insulin to absorb that glucose. But a lot of times, if your pancreas is not producing enough insulin, which can happen as you get older, it can happen from taking stuff like GH, which works antagonistically to insulin. You could start waking up with higher fasting blood sugars like 95, 96, 98. Some people go into the hundreds. And that's not good, because what that means, number one, you're not absorbing your food, adequately, the glucose out of the bloodstream. And number two, it means you're running slightly high blood sugars, which can cause accumulative damage in the brain, the eyes, the extremities. And over time, that's going to do damage to your body. So we don't want to do that. For bodybuilding purposes, we want to make sure we absorb everything. So when you do run high fasting blood sugars over 90 consistently, it's not a bad idea to put some long-acting insulin into the program. And the great thing about long-acting insulin is that you don't have to calculate how many grams of carbs you're eating or anything like that. It kind of works in the background. It's kind of like TRT. It's like taking testosterone, long-acting testosterone. You don't even know you're doing it, because it's kind of working in the background. How much you take is kind of dependent on what your blood sugars are, and depends on what insulin you use. The best two long-acting insulins, which are the hardest to get and cost the most, unless you have a prescription, is h.g.h and Tresiba. Those are true once-a-day insulins. They actually last 18 hours. So you only have to take them once a day. Most people take them, at night with their dinner. That's what I do. I take a little h.g.h because my insurance covers it. I have a prescription for it, and I'll take like around 30 units at night. That seems to be perfect for me. Some people can take less. Some people need to take more. It depends on, what the situation is. Now, if you're taking an insulin, a long-acting insulin that requires 2 shots a day because it doesn't last as long, like Lantus or Novolin N, or trying to think of another one. But those insulins don't make it, even though Lantus is considered a good insulin, doesn't make it 24 hours. You got to take it twice a day. You kind of take half and half. So let's say I needed 30. I would take 15 units of Lantus in the morning and 15 at night, or 15 Novolin, and then that would usually do the trick. A lot of people need more. So you always start lower. You start like 10 units and 10 units. See how that goes. More than likely, it's not going to lower you enough. Then go 15 and 15. And then you might get a little closer. Then maybe try 17 and say, you got to keep inching it up until you get that fasting sugar under 90 consistently in the morning. And, if you're dieting or you're off season, it could change it. Usually when you diet for a show, you don't really need it because usually carb intake is much lower. But, once again, you test your blood sugars and you know what they are. If you're not testing blood sugars, then you can't just buy whatever, just throw insulin in. That's ridiculous. So go to Walmart. It's $9. You get a blood sugar monitor, and you monitor your blood sugar every morning when you wake up, and you'll know what your numbers are, and you'll know how to take the insulin properly.
Let's go to Paulie 3219. Your thoughts on how long to rest between sets, especially doing heavy leg press or squats?
Yeah, I used to rest a long time between deadlifts, squats, bent rows. I found that, when I started rushing it a little bit where I wouldn't rest enough, my lifts went down. So even on the bench, even now, I don't lift a lot of weight. But you know what? If I go into the gym and I'm doing like dumbbell presses, incline dumbbell presses, let's say I go start with the 55s, warm up, I go up to the 65, 70s, and then I and then I know I'm going to go a little heavier, which maybe I'm going to go 80, which is for me is challenging now, especially with shoulder replacements and everything. I don't want to go too crazy. If I don't rest enough, I'll get like 2 reps with them. But if I give myself like a 3-minute rest, which is good, but if you go too much longer than that, sometimes you start getting cold muscle. You don't want the muscle to get cold, so you don't want to get on your phone and stuff like that. So about 3 minutes, I get those dumbbells and I'm fresh, and it's like I'm doing my first set. So I'm a big believer in less sets, a little bit more rest between sets and heavy weights. So in order to lift your heaviest, you can't be taking 30-second rest. You'll never be able to lift more, especially on the heavy compound movements. Maybe when you're doing like cable stuff and machines, it's one thing. But I always took a lot of rest. But you know what? That's the advantage of not doing a lot of sets. If you're only doing 10 or 12 sets, then you could take 3 minutes between sets, and you know what? It doesn't bother you. But when you have to do 30 sets in the gym, you're rushing through it, and that's another reason why I think you don't get the most benefit out of it, because you're going too fast, because you're so worried about getting the 30 sets done that you're not giving 100% to the sets that you're doing. Whereas if you did half as much, if you did 15 sets, you would put a lot more effort into those sets that you're doing, and I think you get a lot more out of it. Dorian said the same thing.
Let's go to Richard 9000. I'm 46, currently on Tren E and sustanon. I want to use h.g.h. Your thoughts, and what should I stack it with?
Well, you have a pretty good stack already using test and trend. I don't know what else you need to stack it with. You could just throw some 2 to 3 or 2 to 4 IUs of GH in there in the morning. You'll probably get a nice response, synergistic response with those drugs. You can't go wrong with test and trend. Obviously, you don't want to stay on trenbolone, for too long, because it can raise blood pressure, make it hard to sleep. But even if you did test in EQ or a test in DECA, you're still going to get really good results when you stack that with the GH. So, growth just makes everything work better as far as I'm concerned. As long as your blood sugars are under control. Once again, we talked about that earlier. So as long as your fasting blood sugars are not getting too high on the GH, and if they are, you can always throw a long-acting insulin in there. I think you'll be good to go.
Let's go to Aniko Cantemir. Do you really use your keto diet with professional bodybuilders, or just reduce the carbs to a certain amount? I don't know. It's something about fatty, but let's also stick to professional bodybuilders. Do you use your full scale keto with them, or something just to reduce carbs?
I very rarely start with just an exclusively ketogenic diet with people. It always is like a rotation diet. So some days I'll give them protein fat. Some days I'll give them like protein, vegetables, and carbs, and I'll rotate it around. Usually it starts with more days carbs and then less days just protein fat, and I'll rotate it. Some people need to lose a lot of weight, and some people are really carb sensitive. So for those people, we almost go to a ketogenic diet. A lot of times we will go to a ketogenic because they prefer it. They feel better on it. And they do better on it. Other cases, the person's metabolism is just too fast. And I don't need to, maybe we go 1 day a week or 2 days a week, they're getting no carbs. The rest of the days they're eating carbs. So it really depends on who you're working with. Like I work with a lot of the WWE wrestler guys, and they like the ketogenic diet because it's much easier to travel with protein and fat than it is with, carbs, because carbs you have to cook. You have to cook rice and potatoes and all that, and oatmeal. With the ketogenic diet, you can bring nuts with you, and you can bring a bottle of macadamia oil. You could bring, your protein powder with you. It's very easy to travel. That's why H.g.h always loved doing the ketogenic diet, because he's like, David, it's so easy for me to go from city to city. I don't have to worry about anything. I can always get a piece of fish someplace and a salad if I want, or or asparagus or something like that. And then I bring my bottle of mac oil with me, or they have an extra virgin olive oil. It's just easy. So in those cases, a lot of those guys will do it. Especially actors will like that too. It's much easier if they're on set to get what they need. But like I said, it depends on the person. Most top level guys don't need to go that extreme, because their metabolisms are just really good. But there are people out there, and Chris Cecina will tell you, that you can't feed, like Akeem Williams. You have to starve that kid to get him in shape. He doesn't lose weight otherwise. So there are freaks out there that are just like, their bodies don't like, you have to give them like almost no food. And look at Levrone. Tevin Levrone said it. He used to eat vegetables and fish all day long, and for 6 weeks straight, to get in shape. So, and he's a genetic freak. But the guys that are genetic freaks, their bodies will build muscle real easily, but they don't like to let go of anything. They hold. And the less you feed them, the more they'll hold. So you have to really torture the crap out of them to lose the weight. So sometimes a ketogenic diet does come in very handy in those cases. As a coach, you have to know when to use the different tools at your disposal. I just have happened to develop this kind of performance ketogenic diet, 25 years ago, and used it on myself and a lot of other people, and it works. So I'm known for that. It doesn't mean I use it for every single bodybuilder. I use it where necessary. I use it with the women. The women do great on a ketogenic diet, because it takes away the cravings for them to eat carbs and cheat. So for them, I use that with almost every woman. I use a ketogenic diet, and I feel that I get the best results with that with them. There are only a few females that can really metabolize carbs very rapidly and efficiently. And so in those cases, I'll use the carbs with them, but most of the women do very well in keto.
Let's go to Alan Minch. My wife has never used any anabolics, has competed very successfully as a natural competitor. At 46 now, she's thinking of trying anavar and clen for a show next spring. What's her best route into this?
As far as, route, is that into where to get them? I don't know. I guess he's asking dosages, because I can't believe he would ask me on the show like where to get it. If she's 46, she can go to a rejuvenation clinic and probably get, but she's not going to get clenbuterol there, because clenbuterol is a drug that's not made in this country. So that's always going to be a great market purchase. But yeah, I usually start women with like 10 to 20 milligrams per day of anavar. Anavar really doesn't have a lot of side effects in most women, although I know a couple women that for some reason it was messing with their voice. And I was talking to them on the phone. I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, I think I have a cold. And I'm like, nah, I don't think so. So I said, you better stop. And she stopped the anavar, and she, now it's possible she was using fake anavar, but I think she was getting it from a clinic. So some people, very, very rarely have I seen any women have side effects from anavar. So usually 10 to 20 milligrams is pretty safe per day. And then usually I start women with like 20 micrograms of clenbuterol twice a day. And, we can build from there. But that's a safe way to start. And like I said, pretty side effect free. And, if it's her, obviously everyone has to make their own opinion. She was natural for many years. She wants to try to make a little bit of improvements. I don't see there being any problems or any kind of side effects that she should experience. The key is make sure you get real anavar. If you're not getting it from a pharmacy, legitimate pharmacy, then you should purchase the Roy test kits that I sell at DavePalumbo.com. You can get the oxandrolone, the anavar testing kit, and just test your stuff. Make sure you're not taking Dianabol, because there's a lot of fake drugs out there on today's marketplace. We know that. And anyone who doesn't test their stuff, given the fact that Bill Llewellyn created this great product called Roy Test, that's why I got behind it. I couldn't believe what a great product this is. Everyone should test their gear if it's coming from an underground source. There's no reason not to. This way, you know what you're taking, and you know if it's good. Because otherwise, you know what? You have no one to blame but yourself for being lazy, for not spending $20 on a test kit. It's ludicrous. Most people, look, we sell a lot of these kits, so a lot of people test their stuff. But there's still a lot of people out there, and I am afraid to say I have clients that don't test their stuff, and then I have to have that conversation with them. You look natural, and that's not a good conversation to have. Okay, and then they find out all their gear was fake. So Don't learn the hard way. Spend a few bucks, get your stuff tested, and then at least you know what you're doing is real.
Let's go to Logan Wilbert. I know you like taking these kind of questions. In your opinion, who is the biggest and strongest bodybuilder, and what bodybuilder would you say took size and mass to a, quote, terrifying level?
That's a couple questions right there. Terrifying level of mass is probably Greg Kovacs, right? Over 400 pounds. As far as professional bodybuilders go. And the strongest, one of the strongest guys that I've ever personally seen in the gym was Akeem Williams. And it wasn't that he was lifting, there are guys that can lift as much as him. Like Ronnie probably lifted pretty close. I think he was lifting a little heavier than Ronnie, but when he would do it, it would be effortless. Like I would see Ronnie come out with, deadlift, 800 pounds. It looked like he was lifting like, a tank off the ground. It was so heavy. Akeem will do it, did it effortlessly. Same thing. I've seen Akeem walk out with 7 plates on each side on a squat bar. Walk out with it like he was walking out with like 225 and squat it like 6 times like it was 225 and you would never even realize how heavy the weight was. That's because that's how effortlessly he made it look. So he's one of the strongest guys. Joe Mackey has to also be up there and one of the strongest guys I've ever seen lift too. If you watch the stuff he does on YouTube, he's unbelievable, the guy. And both of them couldn't be nicer guys too. But just crazy strong. Stan Efferding was insanely strong back in the day, but he was more of a power lifter guy. He could do the 1 rep type stuff. Akeem is doing like reps with this heavy, crazy weight. So, and Johnny Jackson was strong, but those Johnny and Stan were more power lifters, whereas Joe Mackey and Akeem are just bodybuilders that just happen to be crazy strong and can do reps with stuff and insane lifts. So yeah, I would have to, and I'm probably, Larry Wheels would have to be in that category too. He's got that retarded crazy strength too. I've seen him lift in person. He's just, you don't think he can do it, and it just goes up. He doesn't have like a crazy heavy, physique, but he has this insane tendons and ligaments that can just endure tremendous weight. So there's a lot of impressive guys. Look, I was strong back in the day, and I feel like I was weak compared to when I watched these guys lift. They're that impressive.
Andrew Puzo, for optimal muscle gain and fat burning, is it preferable to conduct cardio earlier in the day and weight training later, or vice versa? Is there a right answer to this?
I think it's your schedule. A lot of people like to do the cardio first thing in the morning when they're dieting for a show and then do their weights later in the day after they have a few meals in them. I always said, what, you bet. I don't like the idea of having to go twice a day to work out unless you're doing a lot of volume. So in other words, let's say you have to do like an hour and a half of cardio. It's not conducive to do your weights and then do an hour and a half of cardio after. It's just, you're not going to have enough energy. So you might do your weights in 45 minutes of cardio after, and then do another session either in the morning or later in the day. So it really depends on what you have to do. Once again, I know people that have to go to work, so they get up a little early, they do their cardio, get it out of the way, they go to work, and then when they get out of work, they do their weights. So it really depends. If you have the whole day available to you, I would just, and I only had to do like 35, 40 minutes of cardio, I would just go to the gym, do my weights, and then do my cardio after and be done. 1 session for the day. That's just me, and then you can spend the rest of the time, doing your posing or something like that. But if you have to work around the schedule, then, you have to slip it in wherever you can do it.
Question from Jeff Master Blaster Decker. I'm 50 with massive joint injuries after 30 years in the Marines. We thank you for your service. When did you know, you had to get your shoulders fixed?
I put it off for 18 years. It got to the point where I couldn't sleep comfortably at night. Yeah, it didn't matter what side I rolled to. I was sore and I was waking up from the pain. It was annoying. It got to, because initially, for most of the time that I had the shoulder problems, it only hurt when I was in the gym. When I wasn't in the gym and I was just on the computer or just doing normal everyday stuff, I wasn't in any pain. It was when I had to reach over my head or, do something, even to grab something from the overhead compartment on an airplane. Anytime I had to reach up or reach away from myself, that's when it hurt. So, you're not doing that all day long. Most of the time, you're just kind of your arms are right in front of you. So I wasn't in pain. When it got to the point where it was hurting all the time, that's when I said I have to do it, because at that point it was like quality of life, at that point. And you know what? I want to just make one statement. During that entire time, from whenever I was first diagnosed, and probably maybe like early 2000s, all the way to whenever I got it done, 2018 or whatever it was when I first started getting it done, I never took a single pain med for my shoulders. So I wasn't on like Tylenol, I wasn't on ibuprofen, I wasn't on not a single pain med the whole time. So I never was in pain at rest. And that's important. If I was chronically in pain and I was having to take pain meds, I would have gotten it done way before that. And I don't know why that was that I wasn't in pain. Maybe because I had a lot of muscle on my body that was supporting the joint, and I just got lucky. I was not in pain at rest. I only was in pain. It got to the point where when I was laying in bed, there was just no comfortable side. So if I leaned into it, I would feel it. And that's when I said, you know what, enough is enough, because I don't want to get to the point where I had to take pain meds. So I think that for every person, it's different. But I think that's when you have to start taking pain meds every single day, you better go get your shoulders done. And you know what? Once you get it done, you'll be so happy. You'll be like, I can't believe I waited this long, because it's really not that terrible. And you'll be out of pain. Like within 3 days after the surgery, you'll feel better than you did before the surgery. And that's a God honest truth.
We'll take one more question from William Dusing. Any noticeable difference between the basic creatine monohydrate and the German creapure?
Well, most people use, first of all, from what I hear, I don't even know if there's actually any German creatine made anymore. I don't know. I think the Germans get it from the Chinese now too. But, creapure is still creatine monohydrate. That's what I use in Crealyze. So, assuming it does still come from there, it's creatine monohydrate. It's creatine monohydrate, theoretically. Obviously, if you're using a good manufacturer, they're testing the creatine when it comes in to make sure it's not creatinine waste product, and that you have real creatine monohydrate. And so, I know that my company does all these testing, products on it. And that's why we buy the name brand. But, aside from that, I think that pretty much creatine monohydrate is creatine monohydrate. It's like kind of saying that, like, what's better, testosterone cypionate from Upjohn or generic testosterone cypionate? Well, it's the same drug, so it's the same, as long as it's coming from a reputable source and being processed by a reputable manufacturer. It should be exactly the same. And so I'll leave it at that.
That's going to do for this episode.
I just want to add one thing. The creatine monohydrate, the thing that you want to look for is you want to make sure you're using a micronized creatine monohydrate. Because what they do is sometimes the creatine granules are so big that when you mix it in water, it doesn't really solubilize. And if it doesn't solubilize, go into solution, you're not going to absorb it. So we use a highly micronized, I call it ultra micronized, but it's like double micronized creatine, so that when you mix it, it's already like almost like dust. It mixes real easily. And I think that definitely influences how much you absorb of it. But other than that, creatine is creatine.
With that, we end this episode. Again, if you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. Again, all new episodes of Heavy Muscle Radio and the After Hours podcast right now live on the channel. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button below, comment below, and as always, we appreciate all of your support. Dave, are you going to be doing the podcast this week with John and Lee?
John is on vacation, but at the end of I've been doing it with Jimmy Mentis. So I think that if I can get Lee, Jimmy, and maybe someone else, we might do it together. So yeah, Jimmy Mentis is all psyched about doing it, and he's had some good ideas lately. So if John is not around, I think Lee, him, and I will do it probably. So yeah.
Perfect. So there you go. So keep an eye out for that. Again, subscribe below, notification bell, so you're not going to miss any of those upcoming segments or those kind of episodes on the channel. As always, we appreciate all of your support. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.